Today we are going to discuss how to take a history taking. The first thing you have to take the information of the patient, as this includes the name of the patient and the age, how old, and the nationality, and the marital status, whether she is virgin or married or divorced or widow. For a married woman, we should take history of previous pregnancy, how many times she got pregnant, she never pregnant, first pregnancy, bar one, bar two, and so on, and we choose what is, and then also we have to mention if she is using method of contraception or not, or the husband is using the method of contraception, or they use the safe period, or they use local vaginal contraception, and then we are going to tell what is the occupation. She's a student, housewife, teachers, manual workers, nurse, engineer, and so on. And then what is the address of the patient? And then we are going to mention special health of the patient, whether she is smoker or alcohol taking, or addicted to narcotic or addicted to non-narcotics. If she is smoking, how is she smoking less than 5 cigarettes per day, or more than 6 to 10 cigarettes, or 15 cigarettes, or 20, or more than 20 cigarettes, and how long she is smoking, not smoking, smoking less than 3 months, more than 3 months, up to 1 year, more than 1 year, up to 2 years, more than 2 years. And then we are going to take the menstrual history. When we are going to discuss the menstrual history, we are going to determine the age of Mark, which is from 10 to 16 years, and then once she has period, this period is regular or irregular, and then we are asked as about the first day of the last menstrual date, and then the length of the cycle, or less than 20 days, or 20 to 21, 5 to 20, 26 to 32, 36 to 40, more than 40 to 60, and then 2 to 5 months, 6 months, and so on. And then we are going to tell the build for how many days she has bleeding, and then we have to tell the amount of the bleeding, how many napkins used per day, and then we have going to tell the napkins is stained or soiled or soaked or the blood clots, and then we are going to tell the patient has dysmenorrhea, has pain during menstruations, pain, no pain. She has colic pain on the first day, colic pain, nausea and vomiting the first day, 3 colic pain and nausea and vomiting, and bedridden on the first day, more pain for 2 days, pain on all the period days, pain before and all period days, pain before and increase during period and lasts for a few days after period. If she has intermenstrual bleeding, she has spotting, or she has vaginal bleeding, heavy, and then 1 week or 5 days after the end of menstruation. We are going to ask about associated symptoms with menstrual cycles, premenstrual syndrome. She has mood change, irritability, or lazy, or tense, or depressed. She has headache, headache days before, or 5 days, or 10 days, and so on. We ask about abdominal distension. She has abdominal distension discomfort or not. We are ask about the breast symptoms. She has no breast pain. She has breast heaviness and before the period. She has breast pain and heaviness before period. She has noticed big swelling and before period or not. She notices there is gaining weight before period or not. In case if she have irregular cycle, she has weight gain, she has acne, she has sequelae, and then we ask her she has milk discharge from the breast or milk discharge from the breast. And then in every woman has previous pregnancy, we have to analyze each pregnancy. We have to analyze the date of each pregnancy, and then how she knows that she is pregnant by pregnancy test or ultrasound or symptoms, and if she has any medical problems with pregnancy, and if she has nausea and vomiting, once excessive vomiting or hospitalized because of hyperemesis gravidarum, if she has bleeding or vaginal spotting or moderate severe pain during pregnancy or not, if she has any vaginal discharge during pregnancy or not, if she has plasma or plasma with HIV or hepatitis or stem coronavirus or sepsis, if she has developed hypertension or diabetes or preeclampsia during pregnancy or not, diabetes, gestational diabetes, she was diabetic before pregnancy, if she has placental previa, antepartum hemorrhage or not, if she has premature rupture of membrane or preterm rupture of membrane, and when the pregnancy is at what gestational age, less than 6 weeks, 5, 6, and so on, are mentioned in order to determine that the pregnancy ends in abortion or delivery. And then, in case of abortions, we have to tell that spontaneous abortion with expansion of the whole content, spontaneous abortion complete by evacuation criteria, spontaneous expulsion aided by pitocin or prostaglandin, spontaneous expulsion with pitocin and prostaglandin completed by evacuation criteria, induced abortion by prostaglandin and by expulsion with abortion by prostaglandin aided by surgical evacuation and hysterectomy because of expulsion. In case of the delivery, it is was spontaneous or was induced or plan cesarean delivery, and the method of delivery was spontaneous vaginal delivery with induced delivery, spontaneous vaginal delivery with episiotomy, vaginal cesarean section, elective cesarean section, tubal ligation, cesarean section, and ligation, unilateral and filial iliac artery and vessels, complicated delivery controlled hemorrhage by B-range ligation, complicated delivery controlled hemorrhage by anterior iliac line vessel dilatation, complicated vaginal delivery, and hysterectomy to control the bleeding. If the patient has postpartum complications and chronic postpartum hemorrhage, no postpartum hemorrhage controlled by that, automatic cervical lacerations, suture, rupture uterus, severe rupture uterus treated by cerebrovaginal hysterectomy, consumptive coagulation managed by blood transfusion, frozen plasma, and some coagulation controlled by plasma omofacillin or cerebrovaginal hysterectomy. If she has bebel sepsis or breast engorgement or breast sepsis or wound infection or with tinnitus or tubercular infection, leaving or thrombosis or other causes for fever. And then we are going to mention the newborn complications. That person will be delivered macerated or fresh stillbirth or living or newborn with congenital fetal anomalies. And then we are going to mention neonatal complication, neonatal asphyxia, neonatal respiratory distress syndrome, neonatal jaundice, neonatal death or birth injuries. We are going to mention the patient to incubation for phototherapy for jaundice or extreme transfusion for jaundice, oxygen supply to organism tube, oxygen supplied by endotracheal intubation, oxygen supplied by intubation and artificial ventilation. And then we have to tell that the infant and children there has any problem, death, pregnancy, accident, and mental retardation. And then we are going to tell that the patient receive blood transfusion or not, or the blood transfusion has relation to the pregnancy or not related to the pregnancy. And then we are going to ask about past medical history, juvenile diabetes, adult onset diabetes, hypertension, congenital heart disease, multiple heart disease, renal disease, hepatitis, anemia, and fever. We're going to tell that the patient has any operations or not, and we are going to tell that the patient is not receiving long-term medication, if he has drugs control, diabetes or control, hypertension, renal disease, or heart disease. If the patient has allergy, we should mention this transplant and the allergy to the drugs, and then we should tell that there is consanguinity of to the mother or the father or both parents. She has hypertension or diabetes, mother has diabetes or father has diabetes or has hypertension. And, and when they have to tell that they have to pregnancy or congenital fetal anomaly or mental retardation in the family, then we are going to take a history taken for the pregnant ladies. If the patient is coming to book her pregnancy, we have to know the name of the patient and how old patients and how many times she have been pregnant. And then we are going to ask about the age of menarche and then the last menstrual day, the first day of last period. And then we are going to be sure date or not sure date, not be sure date. And then we have to ask about the menstrual cycle is regular or irregular. And then we ask about if she was receiving any hormonal contraception in the last 3 months or not. And then we calculate the expected date of delivery by adding 9 months and 7 days. And also we calculate the gestation age the patient is pregnant. Every 3 months equals 13 weeks. And then I will ask her how she confirmed pregnancy by pregnancy tests in the home or blood analysis for gonadotropin or by ultrasound. And if she has an ultrasound, what is the result of ultrasound? She has an intrauterine gestational sac or pulsating fetal echo or living fetus or no ultrasound or no intrauterine sac or how to do now or the fetus or two intrauterine gestational sacs, twin or three gestational sac or bit. And then we have to ask if she has any other scan before coming to us or not. Then we will ask about the history of the parent pregnancy. We ask about symptoms in the first trimester. We ask about nausea. And we ask about if she has an attack of severe vomiting or not, vomiting twice or excessive vomiting, hyperemesis diabetes. We ask about urinary symptoms, as increased frequency or decreased frequency with urine. And she will ask about if she has any tiredness or not. And then we have to ask about the breast heaviness or breast change. And then after 16 weeks, if she comes, we will ask about the fetal movements when she records the fetal movements for the first time at 16 or 10 years in 20 weeks. Well, if she has fetal movements, should ask about the number of fetal movements, less than 10 fetal movements or more than 10 movements or excessive fetal movement or 10 months out per week. And then we ask about if she has any vaginal bleeding or not, or she has any vaginal discharge or not, or she has any pain at any time. Or abdominal pain or suprapubic discomfort or lateral side pain or chronically central suprapubic pain or joint pain or low back pain or leg pain. Then we ask about past obstetric history, as we mentioned before, the date of age, pregnancy, when it occurs, and how and pregnancy, and any medical problem with pregnancy, if she has nausea and vomiting, and if she has infections or if she has pregnancy problem, hypertension, diabetes, or postpartum hemorrhage, or premature rupture of membrane, and then we ask about how the pregnancy ends, at what position and age, and when we ask was the end of pregnancy with abortion or delivery, and in case of abortion, we are going to ask mention that abortion is spontaneous, expired, or aided by abortion or aided by medications. In case of delivery, it is spontaneous vaginal delivery and use of planned cesarean section. The method of delivery is spontaneous vaginal delivery with forceps to emergency cesarean section or cesarean section with ligation of the vessel or cesarean section with hysterectomy. And we will mention any postpartum complications. And when we ask about any preeclampsia, and we ask about any newborn macerated with seatbelts or living newborn, and then delivered male or female or ambiguous genitalia, and then any neonatal complications, neonatal asphyxia, youngest birth injury, spastic syndrome, and we are asked about admission for incubation for photocerebral oxygen therapy. We are asked about any infant death or cerebral palsy accidental mental condition. We will ask about blood transfusion. We will ask about medical history and surgical history. She has any operations or not. We will ask about drug history. She's receiving drug for type diabetes, hypertension, or renal disease, or heart disease. If she has any allergy, so aspirin allergy or drug allergy, we will ask about family history, consanguinity, and we will ask about family history of hypertension, diabetes, and then ask about family history of twin pregnancy, congenital fetal anomaly, and mental conditions. And then we will examine the patient. This is how we are going to take the history of pregnant lady. So I'm going to discuss how to history of pregnant woman complains of vaginal bleeding in early pregnancy up to 24 weeks. We are going to ask about the name of the patient, how old the patient, how many times she got pregnant, and we will ask about what is the complaint of the patient. She has vaginal bleeding. We will ask about the first day of last week of bleed, and then we ask whether she is sure date or not, and then we'll ask about the menstrual cycle was regular or irregular, and we will ask if she was receiving any hormonal contraception during the last 3 months before the first day, and then we have to calculate the expected date of delivery, and then we add to calculate how far the patient is pregnant in this month equals 16 weeks. And then we will ask how she confirmed pregnancy, she has any pregnancy test or ultrasound. And then we ask about the symptoms of pregnancy, so nausea and vomiting, and we will ask about when she has vaginal bleeding, since how minutes or hours or days, and then with the belly bleeding is increasing or decreasing of the care after storage, and we will ask about the amount of the bleeding, the minimal or large amounts of bleeding, and we will ask about the bleeding lasts for minutes or days or hours, and we will ask for the change of the blood or color. The fresh bleeding and red blood turns brown, or brown blood or brown blood and then becomes red, or bone juice discharge. And we will ask if she has any previous attack of bleeding before this attack or not. She has bleeding before repeated account bleeding. We will ask about if she noticed the expansion of any single with blood tissue or sac or fetus and placenta or fetus only or physicals. We will ask about the vaginal bleeding only bleeding when after the expulsion. If expulsion happens, the bleeding continues or expulsion will stop. And we will ask about history of fainting or faint or body sensation to fall. And we will ask if the patient has abdominal pain or not. If you feel abdominal pain, we should ask about the site of the pain. And bleeding starts then pain or pain precedes the bleeding, and bleeding go together at the same time. And what is the type of the pain? It's colicky, and aching, stabbing, stitching, heaviness. We will ask about the site of the pain and lower abdominal pain or colic abdominal pain in the lower abdomen, or colic abdominal pain in one of the iliac fossa, or dull aching pain on one of the iliac fossa, or pain on one side, flexing the hip, or back pain, or dyschezia, or shoulder pain. And the pain is radiating to the back, or no radiation, or to the lower limb, to one limb, or to the back and shoulder. And there is gush of fluid, or not. After 16 weeks, we should ask about the fetal movements. She feels fetal movements or not she feels fetal movements. And we ask that the fetal movements still healthy or not. We will ask if the patient has fever or not. And then we will ask about history of investigation for this pregnancy. She has an ultrasound, and ultrasound shows the gestational sac or gestational sac with living fetus or anti-uterus or intrauterine sac with fetal echo or intrauterine sac with living fetus or large anti-gestational sac or small storm appearance if she has before. If she has blood group A positive, A negative, B positive, B negative, AB positive, AB negative, or positive, or she doesn't know, and then we will ask about analysis of each previous pregnancy, our date of how she was pregnant and any medical disease, and then the symptoms of the first trimester, if she has infections, and then the problems of second, third trimester, hypertension, diabetes, premature rupture of membrane, antepartum hemorrhage, gestational age, how the pregnancy end, and how the pregnancy end, sequence of abortions and sequence of delivery, the method of delivery and postpartum complication, how the hemorrhage or postpartum pyrexia, and the newborn outcome and the sex of the newborn and neonatal complication and admission of the neonates to the neonatal unit and infant complication and blood transfusion and past medical and surgical history, drug history, allergy and family history, and hypertension, diabetes, consanguine. Then we are going to examine the woman complaints of bleeding in early pregnancy. We are going to tell the general condition of the patient. She is collapsed or dyspneic or semi-conscious. Then we are going to record the temperature, had fever, no fever. Then we are going to record the pulse, and then we are going to record the blood pressure. And then we are going to correlate the vital signs is related to the amount of the bleeding or not. This is very important because in internal hemorrhage, there is minimal bleeding, but there is not increase in the pulse of the blood pressure. And then we are going to tell about respiration. As any problem. Then we start to examine the patient abdominally. We are going to see if the uterus is front to the abdomen or the uterus front and equal to the gestation age, or the uterus is front and larger than the gestation age, or the uterus is front larger than the gestation age with dewy sensation, or the uterus equal to the gestational age with dewy sensation, or there is tender one on the iliac fossa and the uterus is not felt, and tender iliac one on the iliac fossa, or distended abdomen and brief disconnection of the umbilical. Then we are going to do the auscultation of the uterus is felt to the abdomen to see that the fetal heart sound is detected or not. And then we are going to do a vaginal examination. We are going to experience if there is bleeding, or the bleeding is severe or mild, or brown, or juice, or there is vesicle, or there is tissue, or there is fetus, or cord of the placenta, or there is placenta coming out. And then we are going to proceed for digital examination. Cervix is soft and no tenderness moving cervix, or cervix soft with tenderness moving the cervix. The cervical internal is open. Cervix internal is open and contains its felt in cervical canal, or the cervix is closed and firm. And then we are going to determine the size of the uterus in relation to the gestational age, and then we do by manual examination to see that the neck size is normal after the one adnexa with the tender swollen one adnexa, and then we shift behind the cervix to find the Douglas pouch. This Douglas pouch is free with this body mass filling the Douglas pouch. And if the patient has an ultrasound, in case of abortions, the ultrasound findings may ultrasound is not done on the umbilical thickness and low stacking inside the uterus if the human gonadotrophin is less than 1,500, or the intrauterine gestational sac, or there is collapsing intrauterine gestational sac, or there is blood inside the uterine cavity, or there is uterine cavity, or the intrauterine sac with pulsating fecal echo, or an intrauterine sac with living fetus, or there is intrauterine sac with dead fetus. And then in case of ectopic, we may find that the ultrasound finding that ultrasound will not be done on this empty uterus, or uterus with fluid in the glass pouch, or the empty uterus with the electoral mass fluid in the glass pouch, or the uterus with gestational sac seen outside the uterine cavity, or the uterus and gestational sac with living fetus outside the uterine cavity, or the uterus and the gestational sac outside the uterine cavity, or uterus with collected blood in the pelvis, or uterus with blood in the uterine cavity, or empty uterus with blood collected in the blood ligament. Or there is a case of molar pregnancy, ultrasound is not done, or there is snowstorm appearance and no fetal tissue. Snowstorm appearance and no fetal tissue and bilateral enlarged vesically cyst, or intrauterine gestational sac with placenta showing multiple placent areas, or intrauterine gestational sac with moving cetus and placenta shows multiple placent areas, or intrauterine gestational sac with dead fetus and placenta showing multiple placent areas. Now we have to differentiate between abortion and ectopic and molar pregnancy. In abortions, we have different clinical presentations: certain abortion, inevitable abortion. In post-certain abortion and inevitable abortion, the size of the uterus was weak on the gestational age. In certain abortions, the internal os is closed and the fetus is living. In inevitable abortions, the internal os may be open or closed. In your case of closed internal os, the fetus is dead. In complete abortions, the uterus is empty An incomplete, closed, and smaller than the gestation age. An incomplete abortion, the uterus is less than gestation age and still open, and there is continuous bleeding. Missed abortion, the uterus usually is less than gestation age and the contents is dead. And septic abortion, there's any conditions of the above where the patient has fever. So vital signs usually correlate with the amount of the bleeding, and the relation of the size of the uterus to the gestational age is important, and it's important to calculate the fetal heart sound is present or absent, and the cervical is open or closed. Because in certain abortions it will be closed and the fetus is living. In evitable abortion, the cervix is opened. In case of closed, the fetus should be dead. And the ultrasound will show intertwined decision sac or fetus inside the uterus cavity or egg. While in ectopic pregnancy, it may be undisturbed ectopic pregnancy, and we suspect that ectopic pregnancy because of venal discomfort and the ultrasound, or acute disturbed ectopic, there is massive hemorrhage in the uterine cavity, or chronic disturbed ectopic, and this is slowly disturbing us, so there is swelling, adnexal swelling, or pregnancy, or abdominal pregnancy. The abdominal pain will precede the vaginal bleeding, and vaginal bleeding is usually mild and never severe, and the vital signs are not correlated with the amount of vaginal bleeding. There may be addition of the pain to shoulder. There may be history of fainting attack. There may be history of use of intrauterine contraceptive device or sexually transmitted disease, or history of previous ectopic or pelvic surgery or past medical history. And ultrasound, when the human chronic gonadotropin is less than the gestational age, and ultrasound will show anti-uterus, sometimes fluid in the glass pouch, or free peritoneal fluid or adnexal swelling, and rarely living or dead fetus outside the uterine cavity. While in case of molar pregnancy, it may be complete mole or partial mole. Sometimes the patient may have hyperemesis of excessive vomiting, necessitate admission to hospital for treatment. The patient may have hypertension in the first half of pregnancy. The patient may have cytotoxic symptoms. The patient may have pernicious discharge. Early she has passage of the vesicle, and this is conclusive. Examination, the uterus has weak sensation, and then neither fetal part or fetal heart sound can be detected. Ultrasound will show no storm appearance and sometimes cysts and no fetal echo in case of complete mode, but there is fetus sometimes and placenta showing multiple placenta area uh, in partial mode.